Hi everybody, welcome to episode 130 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, February 26, 2020. My name is Carol. You can find me on Ravelry as Knitsnpurls, and you can find me in real life in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, not too far east of Vancouver. I am not sure why, but occasionally I'll get an episode that has significantly more views than average. And last week's episode was one of those. I am not sure where everybody came from, whether there were a lot of new viewers or whether there were just a lot of regular viewers who had the time to watch last week. But whichever it is, thank you so much for your enthusiastic response to last week's episode. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the podcast. I hope you like what you see and that you'll be back. And of course, thank you to all of the regular viewers. Thank you so much for coming back once again to spend some time with me. I normally record on Tuesdays. You'll notice I'm a day late this week. I woke up early yesterday morning and I did not feel rested and I could not go back to sleep, and I really just dragged the whole day. I was fully prepared to record. I had written show notes and everything. I laid everything out to show you in here in my craft room. But I was also kind of waiting for a delivery. I knew there was something being delivered that required my signature, and I didn't want to get interrupted in the middle of recording, so I put off recording until that arrived, and it ended up coming, I don't know, mid-afternoon. And by that time, I was still just dragging, and I didn't think it would make for a very good episode. So I took a nap instead. It kind of helped. I'm not sure. I thought I might be coming down with something. Last night I was a little bit achy and had a little bit of a sore throat, but I woke up this morning. I went to bed earlier than normal last night, had a good sleep, woke up feeling quite well this morning. So what a difference a day makes, both in that respect and just by waiting a day, I actually have more content for today's episode. I ended up picking up a different project last night that I hadn't worked on for quite a while, so I'll talk to you about that today. And this morning I had to do some errands, and I decided while I was in the area I would stop by one of our local yarn shops. My son had given me a gift certificate for Christmas, so I thought I would stop in there and see what they had. So I have some more acquisitions to share with you than I did yesterday too. So I guess in a way it helped, at least with content. It is because of my errands and such, it is quite a bit later in the day than I normally record. Up until a short time ago, I had a bit of sunshine peeking in. That seems to have disappeared. So hopefully the lighting is not too bad. Better get on with it before I lose any natural light whatsoever. So yeah, let's talk about some works in progress. I have 5 this week, 4 of which you have seen before. So let's start with my Winter Comforts socks. You have seen this first one. It has been done for quite a while now. It's knit from Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bounce Base in the Winter Comforts colorway. And I think last week I had just picked up for the gusset stitches, I think, on the second sock, and so I have made my way a ways down the foot. I think I have a couple more stripes and then it's time to do the toes. So I'm looking forward to finishing these up. I still really love the yarn. I'm enjoying the knit, but it feels like I've been working on them for a while and I'm ready to cast on a new pair of plain stockinette socks. Out of my bin, I put all of my 20 and 20 yarns in a plastic bin that's sitting across from me on my hope chest there, and I'm going to pick a skein from there to cast on. So I'm kind of excited about that. So that's the first work in progress. I'm just going to take a quick sip here. Now I'll talk about a project you've become very familiar with. That is my Zweig by Caitlin Hunter. I am knitting it in Midknit Cravings in the Lush base, which is 100% superwash merino, and I'm using two colors. The main color is basil, and then the contrasting yoke is in pesto. So I am happy to say I have finished the body. Yay! And I have picked up for the first sleeve and have worked a pattern repeat there. So it feels like a real sense of accomplishment to have moved on to yet another step. If you're thinking, gee, that sweater looks really small, it really does look small. I had taken it off the needles and I laid it out to take a picture of it. And I thought, yeah, it looks really small. And I have tried it on several times while I've been knitting it. And so I was thinking it should fit. And it does. Here's a picture of me in it for proof. It is, I believe, has negative ease or just zero ease. I am expecting, just from experience with superwash yarns, I believe that it will loosen up even just a little bit more with blocking. So it should fit fine in the end, but I was a little bit worried. I cannot tell a lie. I've made a couple of modifications on this pattern. One that I've mentioned before several times is that I've incorporated waist shaping into the sides of the sweater. I prefer a more closely fitted shaped sweater to something that's loose and baggy. So I knit the size closest to my actual bust size and added some waist shaping. Another thing I haven't mentioned before is the pattern, I think on the neckline and the bottom, call for a straight up 1x1 rib, but I thought a twisted rib would pick up this, sort of complement the twisted rib that is in the lace section, and so I did do twisted 1x1 rib at the top and then on the bottom. Oh, and I tell you, that bottom ribbing seemed to take forever. It's only like an inch, so I'm not sure why it took so long or why it seemed to take so long. I guess because I was really anxious to get it cast off, but it just seemed to take forever. And then the other modification I made, which you cannot tell from looking at it, I will bring this part up here. In the actual pattern, it calls for 1x1 cables, right facing and left facing cables to make this stitch pattern. And before I knit the sweater, I did up a little swatch and I compared how actual cables looked to how left twist and right twist stitches looked, and I couldn't tell the difference. And so since right twist and left twist are much faster, easier to do, I have been doing those throughout the body of the sweater. But like I said, I don't think you would know that. And it's consistent in any case, so it wouldn't matter. And I'll just give you a close-up of the lace section too, and the color work there. So yeah, pleased to be onto the sleeves on this. I'm still enjoying this knit, so that says a lot for it. I think having the patterning on the main part has helped to keep my interest. As much as I love plain stockinette, sometimes it just feels like miles and miles and miles of boredom, where at least I have every so many rows pattern stitches that I need to incorporate. And I think that's given me both sort of a row to shoot for, and also just made it just a little bit more interesting than stockinette. So yeah, very pleased with that. So let's talk about another sweater. This one is by Jennifer Steingast. It's called Hinterland, and I introduced it to you last week. Thank you so much to all of you who gave me a vote of confidence on the yarn choice, because I was hesitant about it, as I spoke about last week. And I'm still debating some aspects of that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. If you're not familiar with it, this is Hinterland. It is a top-down yoked sweater, and I will come in closely so you can see the color work section at the top of the yoke there, and then that is repeated more or less in the sleeve. So this original sweater was knit with a color changing yarn in the color work section, so that the colors, you know, changed throughout. I had a sweater's lot of yarn from Sweet Fiber, and I subsequently bought a mini skein set from Sweet Fiber, and I had this idea that I could use them together in a colorwork sweater, but I had concerns about the contrast, because the base yarn, it's a little bit rustic looking in the way that it's dyed. This is the driftwood colorway, and I didn't know how well the color work would stand out. I have ends coming off the sweater everywhere, so let me very carefully take this off of this where it's resting there. So last week I had worked the beginning and about that far on the trees. And since then, I've done quite a bit more. In fact, I've done this section here. This is my third time around. So I can say that I am very happy with the trees. I think the green and the brown worked out great. I knit the next section in the blue. It's kind of a tealy blue, as you can see. And then I started the last section. It's kind of, they almost look like little ornaments hanging down. Let me just see, show you there. So this part here. I started it in my fifth color of my mini skein set. And it's this, it's called Trellis, and it's a blend of brown and purple. And I just didn't like the way it was looking. So then I decided, well, maybe since I have brown in the tree trunks, and I did this first sort of row of waves, chevrons, whatever you want to call them, I did that in brown. I thought, well, maybe I'll just continue in this brown and purple color and then do the ornaments in blue. So I tried that, but again, I just didn't like the way it looked. This is quite variegated. There wasn't a lot of contrast, and I just wasn't happy with it. So I took it out and thought, okay, I'll do this blue again. And then I thought about it. I have this skein of purple. This is Sweet Fiber also, only it's in, I left the label in the other room. It's a merino cashmere nylon base. These are merino nylon. So, but I thought this had some of the same purple tones in it. Plus it's the same dyer. So I thought, well, that would be close to the same color palette then. I felt like I would try that out. And so I did start knitting the ornaments in that purple. So you can see that here. Again, some doubt setting in. Not because I don't like this purple color, but because I think I want it here. I recently made a quilt for our bed that has sort of green and brown and the shades of purple like this in it. And I really, really like the color combination. And these kind of remind me of mountains. I thought, well, kind of a purple haze in the distance. I don't know. Or else wildflowers at the feet of these evergreen trees. In any case, I think what I'm going to do is take it back once again. So this will be my 4th time knitting this section. And I think I'm going to put the purple here and then use the blue for the ornaments. I know, I'm crazy. But, you know, I want to love it when I'm done. And I just have too many second thoughts about this right now. And so that's my plan for it. So next week, if I get to that point, you should see this yet again, and hopefully with my final color choices. Because as of yesterday afternoon, before I started adding the purple, I thought this was my final color choice. But I'm just not super happy with it. As I've used all these skeins. I have not been cutting the yarns because I want to be sure. And so as I use each color, I put it in this Ziploc bag. And you can see they're all twisted around each other. It's going to be lots of fun taking them out. But, you know, it's an investment, right? And I want to be sure that I'm going to love it and actually wear it. And the more I think about it, the more I want to see that next section in the purple. So while I had worked on that yesterday, and I didn't want to do any more on it, and I really didn't want to work on my Zweig, and I wanted something more interesting than my winter comfort socks. So what I ended up doing is picking up a pair of socks that I cast on way back in October. And it's part of Helen Stewart's Handmade Sock Society 2, the Sailing School Socks. That was the second to last pattern in that collection. So I had started them back then in this yarn from Tanis Fiber Arts. It's the blue label in the shadow colorway. So this is a 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. And I think what happened is I probably got distracted with, I don't know, gift knitting. Maybe that's when we went away on holidays. I can't remember. I just know that they've been sitting there with, I think, 2 repeats done since then. So last night I picked them up and then worked on them for a while before bed, and then worked on them for a little bit this morning. So I have completed the leg now, and I've done, I think, 10 rows on the heel flap. So I'll bring that in a little bit closer so you can see the pattern. As you can imagine, they work up pretty quickly because the bulk of them is stockinette with just this little panel of stitches that runs up the right side on the right sock, well, the right side of the front on the right sock and the left side of the front on the left sock. So one thing that sort of spurred me on to work on those is that the 3rd Handmade Sock Society launched yesterday. I had debated whether or not to purchase it this time, considering I had one pattern I haven't even started from the last one, and this one that I'd hardly touched. But you know, it's such a good deal. The socks are generally interesting but not difficult, simple enough to knit without a lot of thought, but difficult enough to keep your interest. So it was hard to pass it up. So I did purchase the new collection, and I was thinking it was launching tomorrow for some reason. So I was surprised when I went on Ravelry yesterday and it was in my mailbox. So I will show you the first pattern from that and the yarn I'm going to use in a few minutes in Up and Coming. First of all, I'll show you one last project that I've been working on, and that is another pair of socks for my curling teammate Jan. So she has a friend that dyes yarn, and she buys some hand spun, or sorry, her friend spins and dyes her own yarn, and this is the third pair now that I've knit for Jan. Earlier, well, I guess before Christmas, I think it was, or maybe just after Christmas, she had given me 2 lots of yarn. So I've knit up 1 pair of socks, and I thought I should get cracking on the second. It's like a worsted weight. These are on for my reference to know when to start the cuff on the next sock. Let's turn it this way, minus the stitch markers there. What was I saying? Yeah, they're like a worsted, more or less like a worsted weight. I start from the toe, do a yarn over short row heel, and then go up to the top. So here's a closer look at the yarn this time. Feels really nice to work with. So it's kind of nice. I don't spin myself, so it's nice to have the opportunity to work with hand spun yarns. Bring that a little bit closer. So turned out the timing was really good. I started these last Thursday and got, I don't know, probably that much done from the toe. And I thought, oh, I'll take them into curling, show Jan that I've started. I know she'll be excited about seeing the yarn being knit up. And then as it happened, she had a gift for me. Last time when I knit her, last year, I knit her some socks, and she got me a bottle of wine, and this time I said, no, I said, get me some hand spun. If you're going shopping, I'd love some yarn. So she came with these 2 beautiful skeins of hand spun yarn. Look at the color. Is that not just gorgeous? So again, it's about a worsted weight. There's 380 meters on one skein and 340 on the other. So I'm thinking shawl or some kind of accessory. It's quite soft. It looks like it is, see if I can get a strand to show you. It looks like it's a strand of hand spun together with a strand of mill spun, I guess is the right word. I think. And I know the last pair of socks I did for her was like that. So it's commercial, I think a strand of commercial spun with a strand of homespun. But I just love this color. She's like, are you sure it's okay? And it's like, I love it. So not sure when that will get done, but oh, it's gorgeous. So that was just, I was so happy I had taken her sock to show her. And I'm so happy I'd started it, because I would have felt a little guilty otherwise. But yeah, yay. Beautiful, beautiful. And then today this is gonna kind of combine acquisitions, I guess, and up and coming. So okay, first up, so I went to the yarn shop and was looking for two things. One was what to spend my gift certificate on for myself. And then also my niece had a little girl a few weeks ago, and I want to knit something for the baby. So I thought, well, that's perfect. I'll take a look there and see. So what I ended up getting for myself is this gradient trio from Zen Yarn Garden. It's called Springtime. It's 100% superwash merino and a fingering. And I had two things in mind when I picked this up. So one thing is that they had a sample shawl knit up in a similar colorway. It was green, but not this particular set of 3 greens. It was called the Kindness Shawl by Joala Spiro. So that gives you an idea of what it looks like. Here's another picture. So it looks like a crescent shape shawl. It has 3 sections with 3 different stitch patterns. So they, I got that pattern free. Apparently it's a free pattern. So they also gave me another free pattern with the yarn. It's called Holden Shawlette by Mindy Wilkes. Mindy? Yeah, Mindy. So that was one of my thoughts. Was my initial, I actually had a different set in my hand, and my initial thought was to do some sort of shawl out of it. I should show you that side. I don't think I did that yet. Isn't it pretty? But then I also had another idea in the back of my mind. While I was looking at some completely different yarn on Ravelry, I think it was yesterday, and it was Cascade Heritage Wave in the fingering weight. I was curious to see how some different colorways knit up in it, and so I was on Ravelry looking at the yarn and having projects come up in the different colorways. And one project that came up was this Hinterland, and it had been knit in a light gray main color, and then had this red Heritage Wave yarn knit up in the yoke, which gave me a thought of if I decided not to stick with this color combination on Hinterland, I could get a light gray yarn, and or even just another sweater and do like a tonal gradient yoke on this one, or a different sweater. I thought about the green because of the trees on this pattern, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick with my color combination there. But I just thought in the future, either a little shawlette or a gradient color work yoke with this one. In any case, it's beautiful. Love the emerald green. I think it's a color that suits me, and I love it. And so that was my Christmas present to myself from my son. So I'll be sure to show him that. So then I was also looking, as I said, for ideas to make something for my new great niece. And I had a particular pattern by Alana Dacos in mind. Couldn't remember the name of it, so I went on Ravelry to look, but then what came up in addition to that is the Weave Wildflower, which is a mini version of her Wildflower sweater that's in Coastal Knits. And I just thought that would be so pretty. Not a great copy of it. I think there was a little bit, there's a close-up of the pocket there. Sorry, once again, my my printer needs a couple of colors of ink replenished, so it's not the best photocopy. Plus, it's all done on the yellow background and stuff. Anyway, I had always really liked this version. So I asked for a suggestion of yarn, and they had this Drops Baby Merino in a whole bunch of colors. And I hummed and hawed a little bit, but I ended up getting this yellow, kind of a butter yellow. That's very close to what was used in the original adult version. I thought that would look nice. The new little baby has lots of dark hair, kind of her dad. I'm trying to think what his background is. Mediterranean in any case. That's not quite right. He has maybe like Spanish coloring, if that makes sense. So darker skin, dark hair, and she seems to have acquired some of that. So anyway, I just thought it would look nice, the yellow with that coloring. So yeah, just looking forward to starting that too. So many projects, I need more time. So that's acquisitions, yes. So that will be up and coming, and then as I said, I would show you the new pattern from Helen Stewart. They are called the Luminary Socks. The theme this year is atmosphere. So here's what the socks look like. And immediately when I saw them, I knew I wanted to knit them in this yarn. It is skein top draw socks, which is a superwash merino nylon in the quill colorway. So there's the label. I have had this yarn for quite a while, just waiting for the right project. It has a nice sheen to it. And I don't know, like I said, as soon as I saw the pattern, I didn't even go stash diving. I literally just went right to this one. So that just seemed like a good combination to me. Because this one has, it talks about following the stars and light at the end of the tunnel, and I just sort of thought of the night sky. And anyway, that's for that. It's a lot of talking. Let me take a sip. It's getting a little cool for my liking. I don't think I have a lot more anyway. I took a second to go warm up my tea while I went and looked something up on the internet. So let's talk about what I've been reading. First off, I've actually been listening to an audio book, Me by Elton John. I've actually finished it, and I enjoyed that so much. The Elton John himself does I think the foreword and the epilogue, and then the actual book is read by the actor who played Elton John in Rocket Man. I can't remember his name. I'll put it down here. But he just did an excellent job narrating it. And wow, what a wild life that man has led. He lets it all hang out. There's a lot of things he did he's not proud of. Very frank about his drug addiction and other addictions, about his sexuality, about his struggle with cancer. Did you know he'd had cancer recently? I didn't know that. So just very frank, very honest, very entertaining, and highly recommend it. immediately after I finished it, I went on to Amazon Prime and watched Rocket Man, and that was not what I expected at all. I expected a straight up film about his life, you know, acted out, but it's got singing and dancing, and it's loose interpretations of certain events, and at the same time, having just listened to his autobiography, I could see obviously where certain things matched up from the movie to the book. So I enjoyed that thoroughly too. So I'd recommend it. I've gone back to, or not ever kind of veered away, going through a run of Agatha Christie's lately, as you know. So I've, since I last spoke to you, I forget what I was listening to or reading last week. Hickory Dickory Dock. So I finished that, or maybe I already had. I can't remember. Anyway, I have read Dead Man's Folly. This one I found the solution, or, you know, if you call it that, very highly improbable. I've read it before. I hadn't remembered how it ended, but I enjoyed the book. Poirot comes down to basically a country home of a couple at the request of his friend Ariadne Oliver, the mystery novelist. She feels like something's going on in the house that's not quite right. And they're having, I think they called it a fete. I guess we would call it a fair, maybe. And Mrs. Oliver is planning a murder hunt. Kind of like a treasure hunt with clues, and the girl who is supposed to be playing the intended victim, fictional victim, is found murdered, and then the plot unreels from there. So anyway, enjoyed that. Found the ending a little bit far-fetched, as sometimes happens. This one is one I've read before. 450 from Paddington. Just started that last night. Mrs. McGillicuddy, I think that's her name, is on a train heading to go visit Miss Marple. She's come from London after going Christmas shopping, and as another train passes her, the blind pops up and she sees a man strangling a woman, and then phew, train's gone in a flash. And she reports what she's seen, but there's no appearance of it in the newspapers. Nobody really quite believes her except Miss Marple. And where's the victim? So now Miss Marple is on the case. So I know I've read it before. Again, don't remember how it ends. It's been too long. But I do remember enjoying this the first time around, probably the second time around. I think this is at least my third time around. But that's a good one. So just starting that. This past week, not tons and tons of events going on, other than, well, that's not true. We did have some things out of the ordinary. Saturday night we went to a trivia night fundraiser at the school where my sister is principal. She and her husband and one of my sisters, another of my sisters, and her husband, we were all six of us, and my husband. We're all going to be a team of six. And then my brother-in-law, one of my brothers-in-law, ended up unwell and in the hospital for a few days. And so my daughter Jessica substituted in at the last minute, which was great because she really helped us in the Star Wars category, because none of us are huge Star Wars fans. She knew some things about animals that the rest of us didn't, and I forget something else. Oh, some science questions. So it was great. It was a great substitution. We did get into the final group, but we did not win. But we had a lot of fun, so it was a good night. The next day, Cameron and I went, our local hockey team is sponsored by the company that my husband works for. And he's kind of the local face of that company. And so every year we get invited to a sponsorship appreciation event, and then it's always held before the last home game of the season. And then we're given tickets to watch the game. So this year we did go for the little event. It's like a, just a little get together, a few speeches, some snacks and drinks and such. But we chose not to stay for the game this year. And instead we popped over to the curling rink right afterwards. My sister Allison, who I curl with, she and her husband were in a bonspiel this weekend, and they ended up in the final. There were 2 pools. They ended up first in their pool, and then they unfortunately were defeated on their Sunday game, but they came in second overall, so that was cool. And the couple that they were curling with, my husband Cameron curls with the man on Thursday nights, and I've met his wife through just through the rink. She's spared a few times on our Thursday night league. Anyway, they've asked Cameron and I if we want to curl with them in a bonspiel that's coming up, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend. So I can guarantee we will not do as well. One, because of the it's much larger bonspiel and a higher caliber of curlers, and Cameron and I are not as high a caliber of curler as my sister and her husband by any stretch, and so we're just doing that for fun, and they know what kind of curlers we are, so that's okay with them, that's okay with us too. Should be fun. It's a Mexican theme, so and there's a live band on, or not a band exactly. There's a local guy that's well known that plays at functions, so we should enjoy that too. We watched the Scotties curling this week. That's the Canadian Women's Championship for curling. Very entertaining. The last game went to an extra end, and the team that we were cheering for won, so that was exciting. And then starting this weekend, it's the men's, so not this coming weekend, but the next weekend will be all the finals for that. So I'm sure we'll take in some of it. We record it all, and then we watch what we feel like watching. This coming weekend, we are having, we're going to be looking after the grandkids on Saturday for a few hours, and then we decided, why not just have see if their parents and our other sons and daughter-in-law to be are free. We'd have everyone over for supper Saturday night. So it's Cameron's birthday tomorrow, so I thought it'd be a good excuse to get everyone together. So we'll have dinner with them on Saturday, and in the meantime I've made reservations for Friday night at Cameron's favorite restaurant, so we're gonna go, the 2 of us go there for dinner Friday night to celebrate. So another kind of busy weekend coming up. It seems like for the last few weeks and for a couple weeks to come, our weekends have something going on, but that's okay. It's all, fun stuff for the most part. So yeah, that's what's coming up this week. Trying to think if there's anything else to say. I don't think so. So, Yeah, just thinking. No, I guess that's it. I feel like I'm missing something, but oh well. If I am, I'll tell you next week. So thanks so much for watching. Sorry, just kind of running down here. Yes, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your kind comments from last episode. And tell me what you're working on. I hardly ever think to say, if you're interested, come by Ravelry, join the Ravelry group. Show us what you're making in the projects thread, or come chatter in the chatter thread, or make a comment in the episode thread. I also include show notes there if you're interested. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe, and then you'll be, and I think a bell, and then you're notified when they come up. I generally record once a week, usually on Tuesdays. And that sometimes varies a bit during the year depending on what other events are going on. Okay, that's it. Have a great week. Happy knitting, and I'll see you soon.